Hi, let's talk a little bit about Azaan because his abilities and legendaries, I think they need to be discussed among with his cards as well. Let's go. First of all, let's talk about his abilities so we can have a more detailed understanding of his legendaries or talents. Your IR bar either fills up when you take around 4000 damage altogether, or around 4k damage by yourself. So if you take 2k and you do 2k damage or something, it works just as fine. Your damage reduction is increasing as your IR bar is filling up. At 100% you get up to 20% damage reduction, and it goes on in a linear state as you take damage and your bar fills up. Dealing any damage with your abilities also grant you IR. Dealing damage to shields and deployables don't give you IR. There is something called augmentation, which means that when you use your abilities when there is that little yellow bar in your IR bar, then your abilities are stronger, better, or something else. For example, if you deploy your walls while you have that yellow bar above the orange one, your walls will be more sturdy. When you use your movement ability, Conviction, it will be faster to do so, but, there is a big but, it should increase the damage when you land with someone on the wall, right? Well, yeah, it will do it only if you stay in the yellow bar as well when you activate the ability. Because if you fall out of the yellow bar, it means that at the moment of hitting the opponent into a wall, your ability will not be augmented by terms of damage, but by only in terms of speed. The situation is the same with your Reckoning ability. When you're above the IR threshold, then it should deal increased damage, right? Well, only if you don't fall out of the yellow box when you use it. Sometimes, as you could see, they get increased damage, but sometimes they don't. It's really like random. When you're using it above the IR threshold, you get the minus cooldown, but the damage might not always be the increased one. So if you want to make sure that you get the extra damage, then use your abilities while you're on max IR. This is the most complicated when you want to get extra damage from hitting the opponents into your own wall. Because to do that you have to build up your wall and hit them plenty of times before you crash them into the wall. And then you will get 560 damage, which is pretty good. Also, when you're above the IR threshold, your normal attacks gain an AoE component. Not a big one, but still they gain one. Your movement ability, Conviction, can be used to fly, and it has a pretty good momentum. If you know what you're doing, you can carry enemies off the map because you can have a backwards momentum when the ability ends. You have a pretty long time between your attacks, so you can just adjust your other abilities between your attacks easily. Reckoning can go through walls as well. Also, you can use it from the air. It doesn't matter where you're aiming, it hits everything in a big path. To understand legendaries or talents, we have to start from the beginning. The basic talent gives you minus damage and lifesteal, but on the other hand, it doesn't increase your cooldowns, and it doesn't revoke the ability to gain passive damage bonus above the IR threshold. So this is just the basic Azaan with some extra. Next one is Eternal, unlocked at level 8 I would like to talk about, because it's not rocket science to understand it. It's just what it is. If you can survive a combat, it means you start the next combat with the passive 20% damage reduction from the max IR, but you have no extra damage that you can gain. On the other hand, Tempering is a bit different. When you use Tempering, your abilities change in the next way. If you're below the IR threshold, for example your Sanctuary, the walls still gain some minor bonus to their health, around 1000 or 800 or something like that. And if you are above the IR threshold, your walls will be even more massive. So it combines the basic augmentation and it combines this extra HP you get from the talent itself. So they can survive around 4.5k damage or so. Your conviction ability, when below the IR threshold, it works in a similar fashion when you're above the IR threshold, but with any other talents. And if you're above the IR threshold, then you will make your dash even quicker, so you're just soaring to your target place. And Reckoning, when you use it with the basic talent, you get minus cooldown, minus 3-second cooldown from it. But if you use it with the Tempering legendary, its damage is increased, because it's really pointless to lower the cooldown when the cooldown is increased with this talent. And of course you can still retain your extra damage from the higher threshold, which means that increasing the damage from both sources can pump up your damage to 500 from your Reckoning ability. It means that you can pump out the most damage with the Tempering talent, but on the other hand your cooldowns will be increased, so keep that in mind. If someone is standing close to your wall fragments, but they are on the other side, you can still manage to knock them into your semicircle if you use your movement ability. I don't know if it's some sort of a glitch or intended, but it means that your hitboxes collide and they just teleport in front of you. Okay, let's talk about his cards. There are some cards, for example, this is pretty self-explanatory, especially if you would like to wall off someone. It's because your team has a good sight on them, so they can finish them off. It's up to you. This card can bring in the Sanctuary's cooldown in line with the other abilities' cooldowns pretty well, because Sanctuary has a longer cooldown, so if you would just like to use all your abilities at once, this can help. Self-heal, I don't know, I'm not really a fan of these self-healing cards, as you know, but I will tell about these a bit later. This is about your other allies, so it's not about yourself. Up to you. This card helps you when you're getting out of combat or getting into combat. Both applications can be good. This is self-explanatory, this is as well. This card can get a bit more help on escaping or entering combat, making sure that you hit a wall with someone. This card is fun with conjunction of the augmentations he can have either with the talent or the IR threshold. This is up to you, but 0.3 seconds ain't too much. Maybe if you would invest in Chronos, you could use Conviction almost twice in a combat, but that's all you can get out from this card. This card might help a little bit longer to keep the enemies at the same place, but it's really unnecessary in my opinion. This is self-explanatory as well. This card in conjunction with this can get the Sanctuary even more in line with the other abilities, especially if you're rolling the talent that increases the cooldowns. This is really up to you, I have nothing to say about this. Well, to be fair, this card combined with this and combined with this card, maybe this trio can be a really good self-healing option if you really like self-healing loadouts. But still, even with Cauterize 2, this trio can heal you a lot. But when Cauterize 3 hits, your power will decline pretty greatly. And this is a self-explanatory card as well. I would like to show you some of my loadouts I made, but they are not strictly to follow. It's just thought-provoking. So here you roll with Eternal. Once you get your max IR, you get the 20% damage reduction, and keeping these cards in can help you even be more tanky. Keep in mind that because of your low DPS, even with cauterized they can heal your opponents pretty well. This loadout just aims for you to soar the skies and have it as often as possible, so you're more like a flank in this case. Here you don't have too much damage reduction, but once you get a high Chronos, then you can abuse your abilities. You can have walls every 6 or so seconds, and the rest of the abilities will be lowered as well. If you use Reckoning when you have max ire, that's why I use Eternal for every loadout, because it augments them even when you just enter a fight, because you kept your ire from the previous fight high. Then Reckoning cooldown is lowered by 3 seconds, so with the Chronos you can have it on 4 seconds after you use it. It's pretty good. This is how a noob Azaan uses his movement ability. This is how a good Azaan uses his ability. Veteran's cost got reduced in this patch, and it might be a good idea to buy it with Azaan, because it's 4k damage either you deal or you take 4k damage, unmitigated damage, before you get your full ire. So it would be good to utilize that damage reduction with some more HP. Of course you can buy Haven as well, so it's nothing new under the sun. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you soon. In your bar, but if you use an ability, then... Mi volt ez a 450? Mennyi? Anyát, mit sem, ezt nem választhatom.